This is ACC Nation with Will Ogenin and Jim Quist, featuring ACC sports news and interviews. Available on streaming radio, podcast, and YouTube. Welcome to ACC Nation. That's Will Ogenin, and I'm Jim Quist. If you're watching us on YouTube, we want you to subscribe. Make sure you follow us. You can also follow us on your favorite podcast platform or on streaming radio. If you want to know more about the streaming radio and the selection of the many, many platforms that are available out there, go to our website, accnation.net. You can go to the links page. There you'll find multiple links to different platforms for streaming radio, or you can just click on the link at the bottom of our homepage at accnation.net for streaming radio. We appreciate you listening to us, following us, and your comments as they come in. Hey, big news in the ACC. Number one, baseball, Wake Forest, finally grabbing that top spot. LSU falls after being in that position for an eternity, 7 weeks, something like that. I don't know, something crazy.
Good long while, that's for sure.
Yeah, so the Deacs are now number one. They've got a 39-7 record. We were talking about them on the last podcast about how amazing this team is and how things are coming together. It just everything just keeps clicking. And we'll take a look at the latest bracket. This is all from the D1 baseball guys. And if you have not familiarized yourself with D1 baseball, they do a great job of covering everybody from coast to coast. They also have D1 softball out there too, covering all of the softball action, and we'll get into some of that as well. But Kendall and Aaron have they do a great job. They got a great podcast. Every once in a while, we've had Kendall on, we've had Aaron on, talk about baseball, and maybe we'll be able to capture Aaron here before we get into Omaha time, because I know we're going to lose him at that point.
Yeah.
So Wake Forest at number one, jumping up from number two. LSU falls one spot to the second position. At number three, it's Arkansas. Stanford is at number four. Vanderbilt at number five. Now, who else from the ACC is in D1 baseball's top 25? Well, take a look at that list. You got it in front of you, Will, by any chance?
I do.
You do? All right. Well, tell us who else is on that list, because we've got quite a few people that are very worthy of being discussed.
Yeah, definitely. And before we do, we just talk about Wake Forest being at number one. You know, that was an impressive weekend. They had Boston College for 3. They ended up taking 2 out of 3. And then on that the Friday night, they had a huge outing from Rhett Lauder, who's basically their Friday starter, their ace, went 7 innings, gave up 5 hits, and struck out 9 in a pretty impressive win. They won 6-0 that night. Again, like I said, they took 2 out of 3 from the Eagles, who are in this poll, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But Duke is at number 10. They stayed there after not really playing this weekend. Miami at number 11 is in Clemson's at number 16. They were unranked, flew all the way up to 16 in the polls. Boston College only dropped 1 spot to 20 after that weekend series against Wake, which is fair, because losing 2 of 3 to the number 1 team in the country is not exactly, it's always a tall order. And then the last team in from the ACC is Virginia at 21. They did not play this weekend and needed it after kind of hitting a little bit of a rough stretch after losing a couple games to Duke, and then losing during the week in a kind of a weird game. But yeah, so those are your ACC teams in the top 25.
Good break. A lot of teams there. And there's some teams that are just on the outside of that top 25, Will. We're not going to get into how that lays out, but we will take a look now at the latest D1 baseball bracketology, if you want to call it that. The latest bracket predictions for, well, basically opening of May. And let's take a look here. I find this just absolutely fascinating. Um, there's a couple of teams out of the ACC that may have, or at least at this point, may have locked themselves out. We'll see. But you know how quickly things change in baseball. So anyway, at this point, let's take a look at the teams that they have in the field of 64. Baton Rouge, LSU, obviously is the number one seed there. Terre Haute, it's Indiana State. Winston-Salem, Wake Forest is the number one seed. In Dallas, it's Dallas Baptist. Nashville, Vanderbilt is a one seed. Brighton, get this, Boston College is a number one seed. That's something to talk about. Columbia, South Carolina is the number one seed. Stillwater, Oklahoma State. Fayetteville, Arkansas. It's Eugene in Oregon. Gainesville, Florida. Coral Gables, Miami. Durham, Duke. Morgantown, West Virginia. Stanford is obviously the number one seed there. Conway, it's Coastal Carolina. Now let's get into all the other teams that are in here, Will, because we've got quite a few. Let's back up to basically what they call the at-large ladder and work our way into this and give people a better idea of the teams that may just be on the outside. And hopefully, if they have a good run here in the next couple of weeks, because that's what it's going to take, might be able to get back into this thing.
Yeah, looking at some of the teams that are the lone ACC team that's just on the outside looking in is Virginia Tech. They're, according to this, are the fourth team out. So not in yet, but definitely, like you say, an opportunity to get back in it. There's still a couple of weekend series to come, plus the ACC tournament. Plenty of opportunities to get back into this thing. As far as other ACC teams in the field, we mentioned Wake, the number one seed, and the Winston-Salem number two overall seed. We got NC State again. They're one of the last five in, according to D1 Baseball. They'd be in the Dallas region with Dallas Baptist. Elsewhere, Louisville in as a 3 in the Nashville region against the Whistler. We mentioned Boston College, just kind of scrolling through here. Clemson, a number 2 seed in Columbia, and they would have Davidson, or obviously South Carolina, Davidson, and Wofford. So a lot of local schools there. That would be a fun one right there, a fun regional right there.
That's a road trip.
Yeah. Notre Dame, the number 2 in the Gainesville region with Florida Gulf Coast and Troy. Virginia 2 in the Morgantown regional with Powell and Wright State. And we mentioned Duke number 1. Talk about this Durham regional they have projected here. Duke is the 1. Harvard's the 4. Cool. Kentucky and UCLA. Duke, Kentucky, and UCLA. Does this sound like it should be like a basketball regional or something?
Yeah, this is
just all the blue bloods.
Blue blood thing going on there, isn't it?
Right. And then finally, what's that?
A family reunion.
And then lastly, in the Conway, South Carolina regional, with Coastal Carolina would be North Carolina as a 3 seed with ECU. So a lot of, I think the ACC has the second most, if I saw correctly.
Yep.
I know SEC's number 1.
I think the guys from D1 Baseball are indicating that even though I think it's 11 teams for the SEC and 10 for ACC, they think that could change very easily between now and of course after tournament time. How that flip-flops one way or the other. So there is a possibility that ACC teams, the conference may rise above the SEC. That would be quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, and you look at Georgia's the last team in their field in the at-large ladder, according to them. It's not like they're a lock. And Virginia, they could fall out. Virginia Tech could get hot here at the end of the season and get themselves right in it.
Yeah. And Tech is a team I think that could do that based on what the mix of teams there. Um, wow, yeah, they stand a good chance of getting in. So they just really need to play some hustle ball here. Very
Yeah.
a
And it's going to be
lot.
difficult, to be honest with you, when you look at what they have coming up. They have three at home at Clemson this upcoming weekend, and then close the season at Wake Forest. And they're the number one team in the country. I think they're going to have to go probably 4-2 at minimum to be in consideration. And obviously there's an opportunity for them to get hot in the ACC tournament, but you can't rely on that
No,
necessarily.
no,
And you also can't afford to lose your non-con games they have at Liberty and at JMU, and also. And again, they're inferior opponents, so you should be able to beat them, no problem.
yeah, there should be a couple of wins there. The I think the opportunity here is with Clemson. You know, that's where I see the opportunity for Virginia Tech to turn the corner. But Clemson, where they are right now, I don't think they want to let go of that at all. So,
No, they're a really hot team. They've won 9 of 10, that being Clemson. They've won 9 of 10. The lone loss was to Boston College. Okay, acceptable loss, definitely. They're a really good team. Like I said, they've been very hot of late. Won 9 of 10. They're actually going to take on Coastal Carolina on Wednesday, so that should be a fun little non-conference matchup coming up here for obviously there's some implications for that. And then I mentioned the 3 in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech
mhm.
before they have their final non-conference game against South Carolina Upstate, and then closing with 3 at home against UNC. UNC, a team that's in the field, but certainly not necessarily a lock right now.
This regional action in Conway intrigues me. Coastal Carolina, East Carolina, North Carolina,
A lot of
Maine,
Carolinas in there.
not so much, but Coastal and East are both really good baseball teams.
Why
They're
couldn't they put
hustling.
South Carolina in there? Just have it all directional Carolina schools. Come on. Or
Yeah,
Coastal's not necessarily a direction, but you get the idea.
yeah. Let's make it a little more entertaining, right? So,
I mean, Western Carolina is probably not good enough for this.
no, no, no. What are your thoughts on Notre Dame, a number 2 seed there in Gainesville? It's going to be challenging to get past Florida, but I think they got a shot. If they're playing Florida, Gulf Coast, and Troy, I think they have a shot there. But Florida is the brick wall.
Yeah, tough weekend for the Irish at home. They lost 2-3 to NC State. Took a couple from FSU, who's obviously down a little bit.
Mhm.
A team obviously they're playing really well this season, sitting at 26-19 overall, 14-13 in the ACC. And we talked about it. The ACC is really tough. They're pretty much the SEC's equal in baseball. And you look at all the teams that are projected in. You got 10 with Virginia Tech lurking. Notre Dame is a really good team. Like I mentioned, they've a team that can pitch pretty well. They also have the opportunity. They can, when they need to, they can hit the ball pretty well. And the pitching hasn't been as strong of late. They've been able to hit to kind of compensate for it, but that's something they're going to have to be a little more consistent in that department.
I'm not going to take a look at the RPI right at this moment. I know that it does come into play here, and it is being talked about in this article from the guys at D1 Baseball. What I would do is recommend that if you want to find out a little bit more about what's going on and their thoughts of college baseball at this point, certainly follow them on social media. Make sure that you go to their website and subscribe. It's a great site. It has tons of baseball information, and it just updated constantly, and some great writers there. So we always enjoy talking with them when we get an opportunity. So d1baseball.com is the place to go for that if you're looking for the latest rankings, and of course this bracket that we just looked at. So let's move on here. 5 ACC women's lacrosse teams have earned spots in the NCAA tournament. Number 2 seed is Syracuse. Boston College is the number 3 seed. Boston College won the ACC championship, and UNC is the number 4 seed, receiving at-large bids, Notre Dame and Virginia. So up next, the ACC Softball Championship. So the bracket has been set for that. FSU is the number 1 seed after winning the ACC title. But this is boy, softball has been just wild this season. And this looks like it's going to be a really fun tournament this season. I can't help but think that quite a few of these teams are all going to be earning their way into the NCAA tournament as well, Will.
Yeah, and it's an impressive season for Florida State. They've won 13 in a row, sitting at 22-2 in the league and 47-8 overall.
Amazing.
Just a really impressive team. And we've talked about, them over the years, just been a really great pitching school. And they've continued that tradition, this year after being down a little bit. I think the surprise here, Duke at number 2, 43-9 overall, 19-5 in the league. That's a really impressive season. They were actually 16-2 on the road this year. That's going to really help them come tournament time. Clemson at number 3, 45-8 overall, 18-6 in the league. And that was and we've talked about this a couple of times, over the last couple of months, just how young of a program this is, and the fact that they have come out of the gate with the way they have, probably the best pitching team in the league. They've only allowed 85 runs the entire season, and that's in 53 games. So they're basically giving up a run per game, about a run and a half or so, just quick math, in 53 games. That's really tells you just how dominant they are in the circle. Obviously the bats are very lively as well. But when you pitch the way they are, you're definitely going to be in contention for a championship.
This is going to be an exciting tournament, as we mentioned. The ACC Softball Championship begins this week at Melissa Cook Softball Stadium in South Bend, Indiana, at Notre Dame. How about that? I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the first time for Notre Dame hosting the event. What's up next? It's ACC Track and Field Championship activity, and that's going on at NC State. That's also coming up this week into the weekend. Both the men's and women's outdoor track and field championships. It is the 11th year that NC State is serving as the host for the event, and the second time in 3 seasons after previously hosting in 2021. Lot of phenomenal athletes are set to perform in this particular event. You're going to see a lot of people who have set NCAA records in this event, and they'll be more than likely be heading on to the NCAA as well. Caitlin Tooney is one of those people, and that's somebody out of NC State. She set the NCAA outdoor record for the women's 5,000 meter, 15.03.12. That's pretty good. I mean, it's 17 seconds faster than the 23 second place mark. Amazing.
That's impressive.
I mean, 5,000, anybody that's 17 seconds ahead of you in a 5,000 meter run. There's a lot of talent here, both men's and women's. A lot of this is going to be on the ACC Network Extra. If you want to watch this, it'll be on Thursday and Friday, Saturday. And you'll be able to watch all of the action there. I know that a lot of people kind of look at that in ACC NX as sort of, why is it there? And why do I have to pay extra to get it? or why doesn't somebody carry it? That there's, if they're carrying ACC Network, why don't they carry this as well? Well, that's a good question. That's one remaining questions that maybe that we have in regard to the ACC Network in general. Why is the NX is sort of like out there on its own sometimes?
Yeah. People are so confused by that.
Well, it started out great. It
Uh-huh.
worked for me. I mean, I could get it from the get go. But then when the network came in place, it's like the people that I was using as a provider at the time, for some reason they dropped that, and I was like, I don't get that. Why don't you package both of them together? You know, but now that I'm on YouTube now, so it's sort of like I got it all, and it works, so it's good. But yeah, that I think that's something that somebody needs to look at a little closer. It's funny, that thing has been that whole network has been a bone of contention for so many people
Ever
ever
since,
since.
just for the longest time, it wasn't on Comcast, and there
Yeah,
was a lot of hubbub about that, and then they finally did, and then they're just messing up with the extra part, and they just can't seem to get anything right.
well, the whole, well, they said from the very beginning, and this is the one thing they really pushed, and this is the ACC pushed this. They said we're going to have not only the big three sports, the basketball, the football, the baseball. We're not only going to have them, but we're going to have all of these other sports on our network as well, so that everybody's getting, coverage, and which is the way it should be, right? Because there's plenty of sports out there that people are interested in and want to see.
Mhm.
Well, some of this stuff has been relegated to network extra, so people can't see it. So you would think that, okay, well, why isn't it on the regular network instead of some of the stuff that they've been replaying over and over and over again? um
Because everyone needs to see, back, when it was a thing, they needed the second helping of Packer and Durham
uh,
when
sure.
when they were still together.
uh,
Or, well,
sure.
what was it, rather than having a women's basketball tournament game on the regular network, they would have like a replay of a football game or something from prior. I'm like, if you want to grow the women's basketball game, have the actual content on your
Right.
network.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. There are plenty of hours in a day to do it, and you're not, it's not helping.
Yeah. And I can upset a lot of Duke fans about this, but that whole series, about Coach K,
Mhm.
and that, I mean, it was a great documentary. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed watching it
Yeah, it was good.
one time,
Yeah.
but not over and over and over again. That's the type of thing that, okay, you can run it once, you can run it twice, then you can relegate it over to NX. Okay. But like you said, they should be running, the women's basketball tournament should have been highlighted on the network instead of reruns of stuff that, you know, does anybody really care? Um, I just think we're missing the boat here. I don't know what the deal is. I'm not sure who's in charge of the programming aspect there, but I just, I would say knock on wood, but this stuff that they make desks out of anymore is composite, and it's epoxy and everything else, and
Mhm.
I could do this and I get wood. So um, anyway, I just, come on.
Or was it particle board like it was bought from IKEA?
Yeah, exactly. Sawdust and glue. Uh,
Yeah.
Whatever
And
works for you,
headaches.
man. It's easy in and out of offices. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point being is that if you and I are sitting here talking about this and we see it, and our buddies talk about this too. We've got a lot of people who are in the business who talk about the same thing, who will complain openly about it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, don't you think that's obvious? It's not like, okay, so all right, I've been involved in television and done a lot of things, programming and whatnot, and I understand some of this stuff. I get it. I get where you have to move this, that, and the other thing and make things work. But it's been long enough. You should be able to do this and do it right. Why aren't you? So anyway, that's me ragging on whoever's programming the network at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
There are so many options that they could do and put it, or put it on at a better time. You can have the stuff on in prime time and not upset anything. I mean, you have your original programming midday, the two shows that are on the middle of the day, but that's really all you got.
right. I'm not a fan of that either. So
I'm at work, so I miss it. So I don't ever get to watch it live. So I couldn't tell you.
I just,
it just doesn't hit for you.
There's not enough, there's tons of dynamic people who are available, up and coming people, energetic people, people who have knowledge and are willing to stir the pot a little bit. Those are the types of people that you should have on, I think, because sports talk, like sports radio, is about multiple things and stirring the pot and getting people riled up and fandom is all about the energy, right? It's all about yes, my team. I'm missing something. I'm not hearing that. I'm not seeing it. It's sort of like vanilla. Anyway, you're lucky that you're working.
Speaking of vanilla ice cream, sounds really good right now.
Yes, it does. Let's move on. Gosh, I can go on forever about this. Off the rails again. All right, let's talk about ACC. That's not unusual, is it? Let's talk about the ACC Rowing Championship. That's going to be coming up this week at Lake Wheeler in Raleigh, which is different than what we have seen in the past because it's been held at Clemson forever and a day. Virginia is the top seed in varsity 4, second varsity 8, and third varsity 8. Syracuse claimed the number 1 seed at the varsity 8, and Duke is the top seed at the second varsity 4. I love that. That is so cool that we have 3 teams that are blasting away and rowing, that it's spread out this year. Virginia claimed its 12th straight ACC championship. They have won 4 of the 5 grand finals, and that was what vaulted them into that number 1 seed. Syracuse came in with 83 points, Virginia 98 points, Syracuse 83, Duke 82. Wow. That's quite something, to say the least. Those 3 teams have, we talked about this the last show too, is that the coaches there and what they have put into those programs, they've all done such a phenomenal job. Those rowing programs are just incredible. If you're not into rowing, you've never seen rowing, take the time. And guess where you're going to find it? ACC Network Extra.
The X.
which is okay.
We'll call it the X.
Yeah, it's okay. It's on Friday and Saturday. The finals are.
The X going to give it to you.
God. That should replace ball. I can't even do it.
Was that a chicken?
Yeah. I cringe every time. It's like, oh my.
Wow.
There you go. It conjures up an image of somebody that yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to something else here. 9 ACC men's golf teams are headed to the NCAA tournament. That's pretty cool. 2 individuals are going to be representing their teams, Notre Dame's Palmer Jackson and his teammate, Nate Stevens. So Jackson is a number 4 individual seed, and Stevens is seeded 9th. Now, the teams that are going to be playing at Greyhawk Golf Club, do you have that in front of you by any chance? Or am I stepping ahead of things here just a bit?
I have when everything is going on. I have like the regionals and stuff like that. I don't have much else.
Okay.
So I know the regionals are going on as of starting today for the women, and then
right.
they were started at FAU and then hosted by University of Georgia. They're at their course, and then Bloom at Indiana, University of Indiana, along with NC State and UTSA and Wazoo. And then the men start next week.
That's right. 26th through the 31st. They'll also be at Greyhawk Golf Club, which is an absolutely gorgeous
in Arizona. Yep.
Yeah, out there in the desert. The Salem, South Carolina regional, the number 1 seed is North Carolina. Georgia Tech is number 2. Clemson is number 9. In Norman, Oklahoma, that regional, Wake Forest is the 5th seed. Duke is 6th seed. Morgan Hill, California regional, Florida State comes in as a number 2 seed. Louisville is a 5th seed. NC State is a 9th seed. And Las Vegas, Nevada, number 3 seed is
because everything is in Vegas now.
And there will be more.
Yeah.
Lots and lots more. So one of the final things here that we have on our list among, and this isn't an ACC sport. This is it involves an ACC school, and we talked about this briefly about beach volleyball. The beach volleyball tournament was just recently played, and number 4, Florida State, unfortunately fell and just came up shy of getting into the championship game. Number 4, Florida State, losing to number 1 UCLA 3-0, and in the championship, it was number 3 Southern California over number 1 UCLA 3-2. And Southern California is the women's beach volleyball champion. So, quick look at that. That's about all the sports I've got on my plate here, man. And there's that was a lot.
Yeah, well, we're heading into the summer, so there's not a whole lot left to talk about. And then once these are over, we're kind of in that malaise, and then until we start looking ahead to football.
I like malaise. It's somewhat like mayonnaise. Same effect on you, obviously. We have baseball, and we'll be talking football. That always starts sometime in June. And here's the thing, it just blows me away. I started thinking about this today, Will, that we typically start doing our reviews of football in June. And I'm looking at the calendar, and time has been just blowing past me this year. And I don't, well, for a variety of reasons. I just say this from a health standpoint, it hadn't been the greatest of years for me. So I'm playing catch up ball, And so it's like when I look at the calendar or I look at the clock, it's like everything is just gone quick. And I'm finally getting back up to speed, and I'm looking here, and we're in the past the first week of May already, and I'm going, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got football coming up in a month. How
Yeah.
about that? So
Yeah. We'll start getting an idea of what these teams are going to look like now that the portal is closed, and we can start figuring out what the battles are going to be going in the fall camp, and who's if anybody's going to challenge, Florida State and Clemson.
I'm looking forward to it, and I've seen a lot of preseason chatter. And this is primarily on Reddit, on the CFB site subreddit, and a lot of people sort of just it's going to be Clemson, and I'm going, hold on here a second. Let's not make any presumptions. It's a little early.
Most likely, yeah, they'll be favored, but it's not as much of a lock this year as it has been in years past.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty fair to say.
well, it's like last year. You make an assumption about something, and it doesn't play out the way you think, and suddenly you realize that you're vulnerable, and you're not the powerhouse that you thought you were or continued to be. And it's not saying that they're not going to be or build back toward that, but I just think that a lot of other teams are building, and the parity point is starting to be reached. And if some of these other teams, now Florida State is one of them, some of these other teams can get their collective acts a little bit more together and start lifting, you're going to start talking about there's a handful of teams in parity. So we'll see. We'll be talking about that and a lot more. So that's all coming up. Hey, I'm going to remind you once more to make sure that you subscribe and follow us on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcast platform, whether it be Apple, Google, or anything else. And we have a long list of places that you can get us podcast wise. Go to our page, accnation.net. Stand about 3/4 of the way, just go down and it says subscribe to the podcast. And there's a long list. I'll tell you how I get mine. This is very simple. It's sent to me. Of course, we're doing it. But I get mine sent to me by email. And I really like that. It's like, I get it sent to me, I get a notification. Boom, it's right there. Go into my email. Got it. So, and if you're listening to us on streaming radio, thank you. Appreciate it. And be sure to follow us on a regular basis. We have a link page that has a nice list of platforms that you can subscribe to. I encourage you to do that. Or you can go to accnation.net and make sure that you listen to us through the link there on that page. And until next time, cheers.
Skål.